Today comes from Luke chapter 6, verses 27 through 36. Let us now listen for the word of the Lord. But I say to you who are listening, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who asks of you. And if anyone takes away what is yours, do not ask for it back again. Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. If you lend to those from whom you expect to receive payment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to receive as much again. Instead, love your enemies, do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return. Your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, for he himself is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Friends, this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Well, we continue on with our summer series, my friends. The Good Samaritan bites the dust, the amazing way the Bible influences our everyday language. And you guessed it, today is the golden rule: treat others as you wish to be treated. And so from our book today, it says this: in Luke's gospel, Jesus tells an assembled crowd, "As ye would that men should do to you, do ye also to them likewise." This maxim would become one of the most famous moral principles of all time. The most familiar form today is "do as you would be done by," which dates back to at least the 17th century when it appeared in the journal of the Quaker George Fox. Pithier than the original, it quickly caught on. Now, one Victorian novelist, C. Kingsley, of the Water Babies in 1863, even created a character called, and this is so creative, Mrs. Do As You Would Be Done By, who he called the loveliest fairy in all the world. And the thought expressed in the phrase, and others like it, is known to philosophers as the golden rule. So speaking of our teachers and our students, what is the one thing that we talk about as students at the beginning of the year but the golden rule? Now, versions of it can be found in ancient Egyptian papyri and in the writings of Greek philosophers. The example from our book today says, "Don't take your brother's toys, Christopher. Do as you would be done by. Remember." Friends, I am a firm believer that everyone, and I mean everyone, should work at least one summer in customer service. In every job that I have ever had and in everything I have ever been a part of, I have to say that customer service is the most draining profession that there is. Now, as cashiers, waiters, and retail workers know, the customer is always right. Or at least, the customer thinks that they're always right. Now, from high school through seminary, I always had a customer service job. I liked making money, being self-sufficient. I started off at AMC Theaters and worked my way through PetSmart and a few other different places, mostly food industry places, cowboy bars, things of the like. And I came to find that people are often in a hurry, they're tired, they're negative when they shop. It's like people don't actually enjoy shopping, they just say they do. And if their day did not go exactly as planned, you become the object of their hellfire. In seminary, I worked a part-time job as a cashier at PetSmart. And I loved the staff. I absolutely loved the dogs. There was actually a guy who would bring in a pet pig and a pygmy goat. That was my favorite guy. And I loved helping people. It was a fun job. I could go in and turn my mind on low gear as I entered into the routine of, "Hello, did you find everything okay? and start scanning the items, bagging the items, and then I say, "Have a nice day," and I put the receipt on the counter. Now, for those of you who have pets and have been to a PetSmart, you know that the little thing that they have you press a million buttons on before you can put your card in is kind of raised up. And that's where I would put the receipt. And they would take their receipt and go on their merry way. And it was a balancing act of smiles and small talk and scanning and bagging and giving change when they provided cash. And you never knew what was going to be in store with the next customer, though. I once had a woman yell at me in front of the other customers because I handed her her receipt in a way that she did not like. Now, my manager came out to see what the fuss was all about, and she put her hands right up in my face, and she insinuated that the way I handed her her receipt was racist and that it was sexist. And she demanded that I be fired right there on the spot, or she would take this higher up the chain, and she repeated over and over, "Fire this woman, fire this woman." Now, before that moment, my day was perfectly okay. It was actually a Tuesday. I had sung in the choir at chapel. I had been to 2 of my classes. I'd taken a really nice walk with my dog, and now I was doing the night shift. It is a day that I otherwise would have forgotten. But I still remember her face and the lines on it. I remember the jewelry that she had on her fingers. And particularly, and look, I am a cat person, but let me tell you, she bought Temptations cat treats. And now I will never buy Temptations cat treats. And she probably has no memory of that day. But it still haunts me here 12 years later. And I apologized to her profusely. I told her that I did not intend to offend her. I couldn't even remember how I had handed her the receipt, but it was probably just like everyone else before her. "Hi, hello, did you find everything okay? Oh, good, have a nice day," right? My mind began to race and my heartbeat went out of control. I liked this job. I didn't want to lose this job. And when she was gone, my manager, he started laughing, and I'm sitting there still hyperventilating, and he's laughing at me, and he says, "Wipe the terror off your face." And he just walks back into his office. Now, I relaxed there for a little bit, because after all, she and my manager shared the same skin color, and he knew me. She didn't. Now, you can bet that now, I will forever be extremely hyper-aware of how I hand anybody a receipt or a piece of paper, because I do not want to insinuate through my body language that I do not like you for any reason. But sometimes we have to realize that people are like garbage trucks. They gather all this dirt and anger and frustration and all the bad things that happen. And we as people, we tend to hold all of those bad things really, really tight until we get to a point where we just need to dump it all. And so we dump them on people we encounter, usually those who work behind a counter. Now, anyone who slows us down or pushes us over the edge becomes our dump site. And once we've dumped it all, we get to walk away scot-free. That leaves someone else with our mess. And I still carry around that woman's garbage. And that was 11 or 12 years ago. And the trick is what you do with that garbage. Every time that you go to a store or a cafe, please treat the person serving you with kindness. Every time someone gives you the middle finger in traffic, say a prayer for them. If they knew what you were doing, they'd hate it. Recognize that sometimes people just need that dump site, and it's your lucky day. Give grace. Treat others as you would wish to be treated. Now, Jesus tells us in his Sermon on the Mount of two roads. One is easy and one is hard. One gives in to our selfish needs and the other gives selflessly. We are called to take the narrow road. Can you guess which one that would be? Now, in the story that I just told you, neither the woman or me took that narrow road. We were both in the wrong. She dumped her troubles on me and I just froze. Both roads were very easy. One was instinctual, and neither of them extended proactive kindness. Now, what Jesus gives us today is the pinnacle of his Sermon on the Mount. His words here are so well known that we actually have a nickname for them. And as children in school, we are taught them as the Golden Rule. In everything, do as you would be done by. Now, if you ask any child, I would say kindergarten or older, what the Golden Rule is, they can usually tell you. And have you ever wondered why it's called the Golden Rule? Well, back in the 3rd century, Roman Emperor Alexander Severus had these words engraved on a golden wall. Hence, it is known as the Golden Rule. Now, the Golden Rule is the one thing that all religions all over the planet seem to have in common. In the Baha'i faith, it is said, "Ascribe not to any soul that which wouldst not have ascribed to thee." In Buddhism, hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. In Confucianism, what I do not wish men to do to me, I also wish not to do to men. I really like that wording. In ancient Incan religion in Peru, do not to another what you would not yourself experience. And likewise in the Jewish tradition, don't do to others what you would not want done to yourself. So, if you don't want to be stolen from, don't steal. If you don't want to be bullied, don't bully. It sort of works the same way as karma in the Hindu religion. At least we would hope so. If you do no wrong, then no wrong will come to you. Live and let live. It is not difficult to find this negative and passive form of what Jesus said. Live and let live. But that's not what Jesus is saying, is it? Because the problem with live and let live, that style, is that it allows us to go about life without any intention of proactive good. Jesus calls us to go above and beyond living and letting live. He wants us to be intentional towards others in the way in which we would hope that they would be intentional towards us. He hopes for us to choose the path of proactive positivity. For instance, holding the door for someone else, even though it might slow you down on your way to your car or on your way into that grocery store or on your way into church, for that matter. Just letting the person with one item ahead of you in the grocery line. Isn't it a drag when you get up there and all you wanted to buy was an apple and a bunch of bananas and the cart in front of you is like overloaded with stuff? And you're like, every line is full and I just have 2 items and I'm already late. Wouldn't it be nice if that person turned around, saw that you only had 2 items and said, please, go ahead? And I will say, I do find that that is more common in Texas. There's something about Texan people. They're nice, in general. And they're even nicer when they're in an HEB. But these are little things. These are things that we would appreciate being done for us. And these are just small examples, but where better to begin? Unlike karma, though, when we do good, it does not mean that good will necessarily come to us. In fact, the point of the Golden Rule is to follow it without expecting others to do so. So we should not do nice things for each other, expecting that those things will come back to us, that those things will be returned. If we do something nice for someone else, it shall be with pure intentions. I'd like to share a short story with you all by a man named Derek Tooper. And the story is of a boy who chose a path of proactive positivity. He chose to live by the golden rule without expectations. Chad was in second grade. He was a little slower in many ways than the other children, and that made them shun Chad. A couple weeks before Valentine's Day, Chad came home and told his mother that he wanted to make cards for everybody in his class. And she knew how the class treated her son. But she went and she purchased the paper and the glue and the crayons. And night and day, Chad painstakingly made 35 Valentines. On Valentine's Day, Chad was beside himself with excitement. He carefully stacked them up, and he put them in a bag, and he ran out the door, and his mother decided to bake him his favorite cookies and serve them up warm when he got home. You see, she knew that Chad would come home disappointed, and it hurt her to think that he had worked so hard on all those little Valentines, and he might not get any in return. That afternoon, when she heard the school bus, she looked out the window waiting for Chad. And sure enough, there he came. All the children came off the bus laughing and having the best time. And Chad came running in the door from all the way in the back. And he was walking a little bit faster than usual, and she fully expected him to burst through the door with tears because his arms were empty. When the doors opened, she choked back the tears. "Mommy has some warm cookies and milk for you, Chad." But he hardly heard her words. He just marched right on by, and all he could say was, "Not a one, not a one." Her heart began to sink until he said, with his face all aglow, "I didn't forget a single person in my class, Mom, not one." Chad's focus was not on getting one, but not on forgetting one. That's what living out the golden rule looks like. It means when I give or help, I'm not looking for anything in return. It means that I will live with this principle, regardless of what you do or what anyone else does, because I have been asked by Jesus Christ to live by that principle, because that principle is love. Jesus would say that Chad entered through the narrow gate. For the gate is wide and the road is easy that leads to destruction. And there are so many who take it. For the gate is narrow and the road is hard that leads to life. And there are few who will find it. That little boy, Chad, he didn't expect to receive anything in return, but what he gave, that came with love when he gave it. He made something beautiful from his heart, and he brightened the lives of the other students. That love took a lot of work and a lot of time for him. It was harder than just sitting around and playing video games. He poured his soul into those Valentines, and he didn't get a single one back. But that's okay. The point is not to receive, but to give. And that is what servanthood is. Christ gave his whole life in service because he loved us. When he encounters Satan in the desert, he came to the fork in the road ahead of him. And he could have taken the wider road. He could have stayed a carpenter. He could have lived out his days amongst his friends and his family. He could have gone home to the same bed every single night. He could have given in when Satan offered him the world. He could have performed the miracles that the Romans and the Pharisees demanded of him in order to save himself. But he took the narrow road, and he showed us the way. He received nothing in return. Judas, his dear friend, betrayed him. His disciples slept as he cried before his death alone in the garden. Peter denied him. The people, they killed him. And Thomas, doubted him. But nevertheless, Jesus blazed the trail of that narrow road and waits for us now to widen it with our footsteps together. Taking the road less traveled, while beautiful, is more trying. Every choice that we have is a choice between those two roads. In everything, do to others as you would have them do to you, for this is the law and the prophets. Which road will we choose to widen? And how will we live more proactive lives? This is the charge. This is the path. And this is what it is to say that we are Christians. Amen.